Hi submarine friends, welcome back to watching me build my diesel electric submarine. So today I added one more little feature, but before I tell you the little feature I added, I want to talk about carbon monoxide because it's been brought up in my comments. So how does this system work to avoid carbon monoxide in the submarine? First of all, the engine is in its own engine bay, as you well know. When the engine draws air, it does not have a physical pipe that goes from the air intake to the filter in the door. Let me just close the door and you can see. I just got to move this. Bear with me. My fancy locking mechanism. I was working on this. Okay, hold on. I moved this cable. There we go. Because I was working on this. Okay. Sorry about that. So, this is the air cleaner. So the air draws air from the environment inside the tank. It does not draw air directly through the air filter. So that means any exhaust leak inside the engine compartment gets drawn right into the engine because there's a constant vacuum or negative pressure inside this tank where the engine is. So there's a level of safety so that carbon monoxide exhaust cannot escape from that area. And that's where the flexible coupler is, which is vulnerable to leaking. So I did that on purpose. So any leaks just get sucked right into the engine. Now on the outside of the engine compartment, it is a solid pipe, no flexible couplers, solid all the way with gaskets and high temperature silicone at both ends. So that should not leak, but it can. It always can leak. Anything can happen. You can never trust it 100%. So when I'm operating the submarine with the engine running, I'm either sitting in the pilot seat or I'm standing in the conning tower and the hatch is open. That's how it'll operate 99% of the time. The hatch may not be fully open, but it'll always, shouldn't say always, but it'll be, I actually have a little special piece of wood that I carry to create an 1.5 inch gap. So it's still below the sail, but it's open enough to let fresh air in. So again, on the surface, there's always fresh air coming in through the hatch when I'm sitting there. So that fresh air passes right past my face on its way to the back here. Let's say the waves are too big and they're overwhelming the sail and water's coming through the hatch. That would take some pretty serious waves, but it can happen. So I'm prepared for that. I have a snorkel. So the snorkel has a rubber hose that goes up, over, and then down again. So, and it's inside the sail. So even if water overwhelms the top of the hatch and flows into the sail, the air intake is still pointing down and drawing fresh air. And that air comes in through this ball valve, and I'm actually going to rig up, I took the pipe off that was here, and I'm going to rig up a water catch system. So if anything splashes in there, it goes into this and it gets caught. Also, when I surface, there will be some residual water in here that can leak in. So I think I have carbon monoxide covered pretty good. So when I'm operating on the snorkel, the air is coming from this point and heading straight to the air intake. So that means any exhaust leak would have to migrate from here forward, but it's going to hit an airflow heading towards the engine, but still not perfect. Very close, but not perfect. So I am going to put in a carbon monoxide detector, which I ordered and will be here Monday. And I got a combination carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. So I have to have a I have to have a carbon dioxide anyways for the life support system. You can operate without it because you use your altimeter to monitor the internal pressure, but it's always nice to have a backup, which would be the digital gauge. So anyways, that's what I'm doing. I'm launching Monday, and then I get the gauge Monday, the carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide gauge. And so Tuesday, when I start cruising around with the submarine, I'll have it. So what did I do today? Because you see, I have like 3 days with hardly anything to do. So I'm just going through here looking for anything that I can work on to improve and whatnot. So one thing that I did is, in my experience, cruising on the surface in a submarine is very hot. On warm, hot days, it's really hot inside, up in the conning tower area. Now, I have air conditioning in here from the cold lake water, but it's still gonna possibly be hot up in the conning tower where I'm sitting. So if I'm sitting with the hatch partially closed, I may get hot in there. So what I've always done in my submarines is I have one of these engine bilge fans from boats because they don't mind water. So what I did is I had this thing mounted here as a suction on this air intake. So if the submarine is parked on the surface with the hatch closed, well, it can't be closed because air comes in and has to go out. So this fan will draw air through this to keep a nice airflow inside. So I've changed that, and now I took this piece here, which is just a PVC coupler, and I cut some notches in it so that they can just stand like this on the floor. So now I just put the fan on the floor wherever it's going to work out nicely. Now, I'm not mounting it until I actually start driving the submarine around and decide the sweet spot for that fan. So I want it to be, you know, obviously the best place, and I won't know that till I try it. So that's just going to sit there. It's out of the way. It doesn't bother anything. So that was one of the things I did today, this morning. I've had a very productive morning. I don't even think it's 8 o'clock yet. Oh, maybe. Anyways, the other thing I added, now put your fingers in your ears, because I hooked up the float switch, which I bought a while ago and never put in because I installed the camera to monitor the engine. So if there's water in there, I can see it on the camera. But that doesn't tell me if there's water in the back of the hull. So if one of these hoses failed, it carries lake water, I want an alarm. So I have an alarm already in the sub for this purpose and for engine overheating. So it's tied into the cooling system. So the factory cooling, the factory water temperature sensor just grounds to complete a circuit for a light or an alarm or whatever. So I've got it hooked up to that, and now I have it hooked up to the float switch. Now listen to this. This is unbearably loud. Hang on, because we're inside the submarine. You ready? Doesn't that work nice? By the way, these are for when I'm cruising. So my job, I'm in a Bobcat often 8 hours a day, and so I'm quite comfortable with wearing those all day, so it doesn't bother me a bit. So when I'm cruising, sitting in the conning tower, if it's really noisy, I have my hearing protection. So that's what I did, and I'm really pleased. And what I did is I mounted the float switch on magnets, so they're just stuck to the hull. And what I did is I put the float so that it's on an angle, because the back of the hull is a curve, right? So it's on an angle so that it'll take less water in here to activate. So if it's sitting flat like this, the float has to come up, 2 inches at least before, maybe even 3 inches before it activates. And that's because it's normally in a boat bilge, which has it's a V, so it's got a deep spot. But this is round, so, I could have 50 gallons of water in here if I had to wait that long for it to turn on. So it's on an angle now. So at about 1 inch of water in the back, it fires off. Now, when the submarine's traveling on the surface, the ass end is down a little bit. So any water coming in is going to go to the back, and then because the hull is slanted back, it's going to build up in the back, causing the sub to go even further back, which I will probably notice, but maybe not. What if it's a little bit wavy or something and I don't notice it? So, and I do have a bilge pump back here as well, which has a discharge hose right here. This guy right here discharges water right out the top. And this valve here is the water discharge for the engine, so it's always open anyways. So this guy here, I just have to open that guy, turn on the bilge pump, and I can pump any water out. I've also got a large bilge pump up front. Same thing, there's a valve in the ceiling of the submarine, and that's a 1-inch valve, ball valve, and then a 1100 gallon per hour, I guess, bilge pump up front. So I've got bilge pumping covered. So that's going to be it. Monday we launch. I don't know if there will be any more videos before then because I'm running out of things to talk about. So if I think of something, there will be another video. Otherwise, no. Your next video will be submarine going into the water. Ciao.